Now let's look at some more examples of enumerated types. In this example, I'm starting out by using some enumerated types that you see here on screen. And these took a little while to type in, so I went ahead and had them all ready to go before I started the video. So here we go. I have a enumerated type called months, and I have the abbreviations for the 12 months of the year as the elements of that particular type. And here's a big one. Okay, we have state codes. So there are 51 state codes because we do have the District of Columbia showing up in here. So we have 51 state codes, and these are your typical mail codes that you see all the time. And I've just put those all together. So we have actually 51 of those as our type. So anything that we make a type state codes, then it can be any of these 51 abbreviations for the states here. Now, I'm going to use a function which is going to be to get the name of the month, and we'll look at that shortly. But the parameter for the function is going to be a type months. So it's going to be this type up here, this enumerated type months, which is the abbreviations for each of the 12 months. Now, let's look at the top of the program to get the other variables. The way I'm going to use the state codes is I've got a file that contains all of the state populations. So I can access the populations using these state codes here. Now, since I do have the file, I have to open up the file and read that in. So I need my input file stream file pointer. And I am going to store the population in this array here, unsigned integer population 51, because again, the District of Columbia is in there. So that is the array where I'm going to put the population data. Now, in the month days, that's an array of 12. That just has the number of days in each month. So I'm setting up some arrays of data, and I'm going to index those arrays using my enumerated type. The other thing that I'm going to use here is I've got an array of strings that has the name of the month all spelled out. So I can index into this array, again using the enumerated type, and I can extract the actual name of the month. So if I want to, I can print that instead of printing just the index. In this case, that March would be 2. Then just a couple of unsigned integer values here, k and south pop. We're going to compute the population of the southern states coming up in the example. So that's the beginning here. So we have these two enumerated types as an example in this program. I've got to open the file, and I'm going to read that in. So the way I'm going to read it in is as follows. Okay, where's the name of it? So I've got a data file. I've got on the C drive, since it's a Windows machine, a data folder population.txt. So that's just a list of the populations of all the states. So if I want to go through and load up my array, I can do it with this for loop. So I have index k, which is already declared as an unsigned integer up there. And k is going to start with Alabama, and it goes all the way to Wyoming. So that tells me then that I'm going to go through all of the state codes, and then I'm just going to read in the data from the file, and I'll store it into the population array here inside the for loop. So there you go. I'm already using the enumerated type from the state codes in order to do that for loop. Now let's utilize some of those, and let's print out some information. So in this example, I'm going to print out a table. I'm just going to print out the month, and I'm going to print out how many days there are in that month. So I am going to put my for loop together like this. Okay, so k is the index again. It's going to start with the enumerated type, or the element from the enumerated type, January, and it goes up to December. And that's a less than because, December is going to be 12. And then we have our k++. You know what? I think that I should make that a less than or equal to, because since I'm using the indices, then December really is going to be, it's going to be 11, not 12. So let's put the equals back in there. And I only have one statement inside the for loop, so it's going to print out this table. So it'll print out K, which is the index of the month, and it prints out how many days there are in the month. So let's start with that. So let's run the program, and we'll read in the data, and we will print out this table, which shows how many days there are in each month. We can bring over the output, and there you have the table. Okay, so let's scroll up the code a little bit, and now we can put the table here. So you see, we just have the index 0 through 11, and we have the days of the month. So again, we get the information, but it isn't as readable as we'd like it to be. So let's see if we can change that up a little bit. So I'll stop the program. Now, let's look at a different way that we can print out the name of the month. And it's easy to do because I set up this array of strings that has the name of the month in it already. So I'll just use my index to get into that array of names this time. So let's get the code and put that in here. This turns out to be almost identical to the for loop that we just did. So let's paste that in. And you can see that the first line is still the same. We print out the column headers, month, and days. So we still have the for loop from January to December. But this time, instead of printing out K, like we did there, I'm going to use that as an index into the names of the month array. So we'll print out the name, and we'll print out how many days there are. The advantage of using the enumerated type again is here as far as naming our indices is concerned. It's easy to read that for loop. Okay, now I had a system pause up there. I want to just take that out, and I'll put it in down here as we gradually work our way through these examples. So let's compile this one and run it. Now the output shows up. So here is the first table that we got from the first loop where we just output the value K and the number of days. Then, let's see if I can fit this on here. So here's our second example where I'm going to index into the array month names and actually extract the name and print that out. So now we get January 31 and so on. In February, we're not concerned about whether or not it's a leap year or not. So anyway, that's what we have here. So now this table gives us the names, and again, we're just using our enumerated type as a range for our index K. Okay, now let's use the enumerated type that we have for the state codes, okay, all those guys up here, and let's print out the number that gives us the population of the southern states only. Okay, so get the population of the southern states. Now, hopefully here you can see just how the advantage of the enumerated type comes into play. So the way that I want to do this is I just want to pull out the populations of the southern states only. And to keep it from getting too long, I'm not going to do a lot of them. So let's just put a line or two of code here. And I've got the variable south pop that I declared up there. That's just an unsigned integer. So let's use it to collect the populations of these states. So if you know the states that you want the population from, then it's very easy to use our enumerated types in order to extract those. So I'll get the population array. Let's look at that again. Okay, I filled up the array population here by reading in the file that had the data. Now I'm just going to pull out certain parts of that. The parts that I want are from Alabama, Georgia, okay, Florida, South Carolina, Mississippi, and Louisiana. So here we have the advantage of using an enumerated type showing up. I didn't have to look up what index Georgia was or Louisiana. I can just use the state code for that. So that's much more human friendly. And I didn't have to have a separate table where I've got to go and look up, hey, the index of Louisiana is something, the index of Florida is something. I don't need to remember that as a programmer. In addition, if I had just put numbers in here, like Alabama's 0, that's the first one on the list, I'll know that index is 0, but I don't know the others. But even if I did, if I had the population of 0 plus population of 10, population of, it's telling me what they are here, 9, South Carolina, if I just put numbers in there, then I wouldn't know what states I'm adding up. But by looking at the code written like this, it's easy to tell what states I'm adding together, what population portion from that state I'm adding together. So there you go. That's just about as clear an example of the usefulness of the enumerated type that I can come up with right now. So anyway, we'll add all those together. We'll have the sum in South Pop, and then I'll just print that out here so we can see the total population of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states. Okay, let's move our system pause and the end line down here. I'll make okay, so let's move that down, and then we'll compile and run the program. Here we have the results. Let's bring those over. So here, this shows you the table that we just did. And down at the bottom, we get the population of the southern states is 49,772,002. So there's a nice example of using an enumerated type in order to make your program more readable. Now, let's do a couple of other examples. Okay, let's suppose we just wanted to print out the months of spring. So let's put a loop in here that would do that. Now let's put the code here. And I'm going to print out spring months, and we'll do a table again. So the same table we did up above, but up here we went through the entire year, January through December. In this case, I don't want to do all the months. I just want the spring months. And if we go by the calendar, then we know that spring begins in March and summer begins in June. So technically the spring months are March through June if you want to count the extra parts of those months that are either winter or summer. But anyway, we will do that. So we're starting at March and we're going to June. And I'm going to use the index into the array names and into the month days, which is how many days per month we have. Okay, so that shows you here how we can modify our for loop to just get a few of those months. So I'm just going to move the system pause down again below here, and we'll compile and run this program. Now let's look at the output. So here we have the output. So the population of southern states, we did that already, but here are the spring months. Okay, so that's what this loop did. We started at March, we went through June, so we have March, April, May, June, and we have how many days per month there are in those 4 months. Now let's do the same thing, but instead of using this array up here of names for months, which is a pretty easy way actually to do this, let's look at another way by using a function that we can do that. And the function we're going to use is the one that is here at the bottom. So we can go ahead and take a look at that. It's called getMonthName, and it returns a string this time. So we're going to let the function return the name of the month. The formal parameter is mm, and it's a type months, which is our enumerated type. So that's going to be sent in. And we have the switch statement inside this function. So it's going to take this input value, which will be the enumerated value of January through December. And then we have the case statements. So for each possible value of month, we need a case statement for that. So here they are. So if it's January, we will set the variable name to the string January, and then the break is over here. We don't want to do any of these other statements if January is the one we want. If it's any other month, say June, then this case statement would be true. We'll set name to June, and then we'll break out of the switch statement. Whatever it may be, then we will return the name of the month from the function. So that's a neat way that we could get the name and use that in our output as well. Now, let's add the code here that we need in order to call that function. So let's put the code right there. This time, we will also print out spring months, and we'll print out the column headers exactly the same as we did up before. And our for loop is going to be the same as well. Okay, so those 3 lines are exactly the same as these 3 lines up here. But the way that we get the month this time is to call the function. We're going to get the month name. Watch. Okay, K goes from March to June. So I want to send in the value K into the function and have it return the name and print that out. But as you may recall from our previous video about enumerated types, I can't just send in an integer here. Okay, so k is an integer. It takes on these ordinal values for March and June. But if I'm going to have the function accept a variable that is a type from the enumerated type months, then I have to use this conversion operator here. Okay, so this is just going to change the type of k from an integer value, and let's see, it's probably an unsigned integer value. Okay, there it is. So it will temporarily change the type k from an unsigned integer to the enumerated type months. So I'm doing a type coercion operation here so that I do get a type match between the call argument and the formal argument there. All right, so I'm doing the same thing I did in another video where I was printing out the days of the week. Anyway, so that works. Okay, I can call the function returns the name, and then I'll just print that name out. So this will result in printing the name of the month, January, February, March, whatever. Then I'm going to print out the days in the month over here, the same as we did up there. So this just shows another technique you can use to make your output look pretty, but still use an enumerated type. Now, let's take this system pause out altogether because I'm doing the last example, and we'll have the system pause at the end of the program to stop. Okay, let's compile this program. And we'll bring over the output. And you can see those last two tables are exactly the same. So here we had the spring months, and we used the array that had the names of the months to get that example. And in the last one, it looks exactly the same, but we used the function getMonthName in order to get the names March, April, May, and June here. So those are just a couple of examples then where we utilize the enumerated types, and we just have two different techniques to get the names that correspond to them. All right, well, that pretty much sums up this introduction to enumerated types, and they can make your program much more easy to read. Okay, so they're kind of self-documenting, especially in this example here. You can see how easy it is. And if we wanted to get the population of the western states, it would be just as easy. We could just have the codes for California and Oregon and Washington and Nevada and put those in there instead. When you declare your enumerated types, then you should do it in the global part of your program. That is, do it above main. All right, if I did not do it up here above main and instead put it inside the program main, they would be good only within the main program, just following our scope rules. So when you declare your enumerated types, make them global, put them up there, then they're available to all of the main program and all functions that you have. Watch out, there is no equal sign. You don't need an equal sign there. You just have the enum followed by your name for what the type is, and then you list all the things that go with it. So that's about it for enumerated types. And I think this is a good place to stop the video. So we will do just that. We'll stop the video here.